What's up, guys? My name is Nick, and this is my 1973 Datsun 240Z. So, just to give you a little bit of background on the car, I got this way back in 2011, right after coming back from a contract overseas, working on aircraft, and originally I was looking for a Datsun 510. If anyone knows anything about the 510s, they're nearly impossible to find in good condition for anything less than a small fortune, and this was before the Datsun craze really took off. I managed to get this car complete. It was running for a pretty good deal, and I drove it around stock for probably 2 years before I really decided that it was time to tear it down and build it up how I wanted. Originally, I was going to go with an L28, maybe do turbo. So out of the 280Z with a 5-speed, it's a pretty easy bolt-in affair. But then, as the car sat and I kind of amassed a few more parts, I really changed my mind on where I was going with it. So now, what I'm working on is a VH45 V8 out of an Infiniti Q45. This is a dual overhead cam, variable valve timing V8 that Nissan made in the early 90s, and it is super overbuilt. It's an all aluminum block, aluminum heads, and it's pretty well known that you can essentially take one of these out of a car in the junkyard, throw some boost on it, and have a reliable engine that'll put down some pretty decent power. My thoughts are to take the engine, do a quick refresh, just kind of a factory rebuild. I wasn't too sure what the condition of the whole thing was. So new bearings, new seals, polished everything up, gave it a paint job, and we're going to throw that into the car. Behind it, I've got a 6-speed out of a G37. So this is really similar to the CD009, except for the fact that it has a concentric throwout bearing. I'm planning on maybe going with a kit to convert to a traditional slave cylinder and fork to handle that. I think Z-Speed Performance sells one, so that'll just make it a little easier. Those concentric bearings are known to fail the slaves because they have plastic bodies. So unless you spend a ton of money to get a metal one, you're going to end up with problems, and you have to pull the transmission to change everything. So rather than dealing with all that, I'm going to go ahead and not even concern myself with that setup. This transmission, when I got it, it didn't have 5th or 6th gear, from what I was told, but I pulled the transmission apart, found out that it was just one of the shift levers that the mount had broken, so it wasn't pushing the striking rod anymore. It was maybe 50 or 60 bucks to get everything, new seals, and gaskets, and then the part to fix that shift lever. So I got a pretty good deal on that transmission, actually. For the rear end, I've got the entire rear end set up out of an R32 GTST. So that's almost identical to a twin turbo Z32. I've got a conversion kit. I picked it up from Apex Engineered. I'll show that to you guys too. That will allow me to bolt in this diff. So I got LSD, I think it's an R230. I can use the factory Nissan brake setup, so rear discs, an upgrade from the drums, and the stock brake cable will still work. So I'll have the parking brake, and I'll have a much more modernized and stout rear end for the car. As far as the front is concerned, since the rear end swap that I'm doing converts to 5-lug, I'm also going to be using the front setup. So I've got right here, these are the TST front brakes. They're the aluminum Nissan calipers, much bigger than the original 240Z setup. And I've got front hubs from an S15 that I'm actually designing and testing out in an adapter so I can use the factory 240Z wheel bearings, and I'll still have the same offset even with the newer Nissan brake rotors, and then I'll need to design an adapter for the caliper. Suspension wise, I'm going to be running the Techno Toy Tuning front and rear setup. Rear backing plates, and they're actually going to convert over. I've got a rear setup right here. They're going to convert that over for me, swap all the parts so that I can run their backing plates for the rear end swap, but that won't be done until I can mail those out. Bodywork wise, the car is actually in really good shape. So I got this car from El Paso, Texas. As far as I know, it was down there its entire life. It does have some of the typical rust issues that, you know, a 70s 240Z would have. So I've got to do things like, you know, certain spots on the frame rails. We've got the inspection panel that always rusts out. Up here where the front bumper mounts are, you can see that it rusted through. I already replaced that side. And then other areas like the rockers and the rear quarters are just completely trashed. I have to go through there and replace all this metal, and I've got new rockers to throw on. For the car, I'm actually looking at a wide body, so I also will need to do floor pans. You can see I've got a couple of holes. The passenger side is a lot worse than the driver because the heat exchanger was leaking for a good bit of time. When I first got the car, that was actually one of the things that I did right away, was get that all sealed up, new hoses, new valve and stuff. But you can see there's still a pretty good amount of rust. There's a couple patches that they tried to fill, but there's also some holes in the bottom of the car. This rear quarter is still kind of the same. I mean, it's essentially all Bondo. So I've got it marked out where we're going to put those Z-Trix quarters onto. Just need to cut it all up and get rolling. Before I do that though, I need to drop the entire rear subframe and assembly. The diff is still in there, rear suspension's all still in there. That Apex engineered rear conversion, this just showed up. Super nice, really high quality stuff. The powder coating is all perfect on it, and this will allow me to just bolt that into the car after modifying the rear spare tire carrier, and then I'll be able to bolt in the R32 rear end. Still waiting on the axles from them. I guess they're back ordered, but those have to be shortened and sent out. And yeah, that's about it. Let me know if you guys have any more questions, and thanks for watching.